Thanksgiving, things are a little tight here. Chapter 14 and 15 are kind of small, which is sort of nice. And what it means, though, is that in the next, week, we're going to basically do both chapter 14 and 15. Okay? Because we need to take a test over chapter 14, 15, and 22, and we need to do it before the final exam. That means it's going to happen in the first week of December, which is relatively short distance from now. Okay? So, and I was told yesterday by the IT guy that what I need to start doing to fix the screen going wacko is to write slower.
Tell him again, no.
And it's absolutely true. If I just take my time, I can write really slow, and it'll be fine in this upper corner. But
you can always just stay away from the corner.
I try. I gotta do one of the two. Yeah, there's lots of screen, but anyways. Okay, so chapter 14 is going to be about short-term loans and credit cards. Okay? So the part I want to make sure that we get through today is at least the short-term loans. If we can make it through the credit cards, that would be awesome, but that's wishful thinking. Okay? So, short-term loan. Now, note, folks, right off the bat, since we're doing loans, why is this chapter worse than the last two? When we start calculating interest, what kind of interest is all of this stuff? I mean, when you borrow money, folks, what do you have to do? You have to pay it back, and you also have to pay the interest, right? I mean, chapter 12 and 13 are like how you make free money. Chapter 14 and 15 is how banks and payday loan shops and credit card companies make free money off you. These are the depressing chapters. I'm usually not quite as happy about these chapters as I am with chapter 12 and 13. 12 and 13 is just fun, right? You learn how to invest money and how to make money for nothing. That's like heaven, right? This is the opposite. This is hell. Okay, so, bleh. All right? Anyways, terminology. Folks, you have to know the right terminology. Again, I'm going to be throwing you more of the business terms at you than the sort of traditional mathy terms, so bear with me to some degree. I'd like to think that a lot of these you guys know already, or as soon as you see it, you're like, duh, I know what that is. Okay? Alright, so, when you are borrowing things, usually what do you have to do first when you're borrowing things? What do you have to give them first?
A down payment.
Uh-huh. And what's a down payment?
Money that you put down.
Yeah, uh-huh. Money up front to purchase an item. An item on credit. Right? In theory, you're not paying for the whole thing up front, because if you are, then you're buying it, you're not borrowing to buy it, right? So, yeah, I don't need to explain that. Okay. So, amount financed. Folks, what's the amount financed?
Everything.
The amount financed, folks, is basically what you're borrowing.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just the price minus the down payment. Please note that if you go to a financial institution and are going to try and take out a loan, the loan agent will almost never say the word borrow. Okay? Borrow is kind of like swearing to a financial agent, because when you say the word borrowing, everybody on the planet knows that you're borrowing money and that you're going to have to pay it back with interest, right? I mean, we just know that. It's ingrilled in us. But if they use the phrase amount financed, For whatever reason, it is a technical enough term that when we hear it, we don't think that we're really borrowing money and paying interest on it. We really don't. For whatever reason, at least 30 to 40% of the people who are told that they financed a certain amount of an item think that they're not paying any interest. They're just paying the finance difference. That's it.
Ding dongs.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know where reality gets lost for some people, but apparently it's true. And this is stuff that the financial institution has studied carefully, right? I mean, they are trying really, really hard to make sure that you take a loan, right? Because that's how they make free money off of you. So they don't want you to pay for anything. They want you to finance it for as long as they can so they can make as much money off you as possible.
That's bogus.
Yes and no, right? But it's capitalism, which is what you should like, right? All right, now, so down payment amount finance. Okay, here's another one, folks. Finance charge. What do you think the finance charge is? What's your guess? This is for a loan, right?
So
Of the
once
rate.
you're borrowing,
Well, no, the amount financed is what we're borrowing.
what's
The
your
rate.
payback?
Interest.
It's the interest. All right?
We would have done that for a while.
Again, another term you will never hear a loan agent say is interest, okay? Obviously, right? I mean, they don't want you to think that you're paying any interest on this loan because they know once you hear the word interest, you immediately go, oh crap, I know that's bad, right? Because I don't want to have to pay it because it's me paying you for doing nothing, right? So they don't want to use the term interest, but, right? Again, it's another one of those where I bought this, we bought a Toyota the other, like, year and a half ago. Yeah, a year and a half ago. And we financed it, and when you finance it, you always have to go in and talk to a financing agent. And one of the things that I did to the financing agent while we were talking is I kept asking him, so how much interest are we going to pay over the life of this loan? And his response back to me was always, and I did this at least 5 times, your finance charge will be approximately $525. And I'm like, so I'm going to pay $525 in interest? And he said, that is correct, sir. You will pay finance charge of $525. Every time I said the word interest, he corrected it and said finance charge, because they will not say the word interest. So if you ever want to screw with a loan agent at a car dealership, try really hard to get them to say either word, either interest or borrow. Both of those are like anathema. They can't say it. It's against the law for them. And I tried at the end of the other thing that I noticed, of course, is that there was a video camera in the upper corner of the room, and we were clearly being videoed, and he kept looking at it every now and then when he would correct me. Right after the 3rd or 4th time, he'd look up at the camera and say, yes, the finance charge is $525. I was,
Please tell me that you told him that you were messing with him.
of course I did afterwards. And he's like, you do realize that if I say the word interest, I get a penalty. He actually pays a little mini fine if he says one of the wrong words that he's not supposed to say. And I was like, I know, I was just sticking with it. He's
They
like,
charge
"Don't."
him interest on his penalty also. He also
Problem.
can't say the right one.
Oh, God.
All right, so anyways, note, folks, when I ask for the finance charge, just realize I'm asking for the interest. Now, how do you figure out what the interest is? You just calculate it, right? You add up how much did you make in payments, and you subtract how much you borrowed. The difference between how much you pay and how much you borrowed, folks, is interest. That concept is still the same, okay? That will never change, all right? All right, now, another one that they like to use. There's only 2 R's in deferred payment price, not 3. Deferred payment price. Okay, what do you think the deferred payment price is? No, not quite. On the right track, though.
It's like something. Deferred was in accounting, and I don't remember what it was.
Usually if you don't pay, you get like a month or so before you have to make your first payment. At the deferred.
It's less granular than that. This is a big picture type thing, folks. The deferred payment price is the actual total cost of an item.
Okay, yep. There we go.
And the idea then is that there's sort of two ways that you can figure out what this deferred payment price is, right? One way to do it is say, take the price and add anything extra that you were paying. What are the extras, folks? That's the financing stuff. That's the finance charge. I.e., the interest, right? The interest for borrowing money is the amount extra that you pay. So if you add it onto the price, that'll be your actual payment. The other way to do it is to follow the money. And the money is just take your down payment plus total monthly payments. Figure out what your down payment was, add up all of your monthly payments, figure out how much that total amount you paid was, that's how much you totally paid for the item. Again, it's one of those where when you stop and think about it, it's like, oh yeah, duh, right? If you follow the money, it will be the money. Okay? So, these are standard terms that you will have to deal with when it comes to dealing with loans. So down payment, amount finance, finance charge, and deferred payment price. Now, the other two terms that you have to work with, and these two tend to play off of each other. What's monthly payment?
What do you need to pay for loan?
Yeah, it's what you need to pay every month to pay off the loan, right? You know, it's one of those where it's obvious. You should know what it is, right? It's the amount you pay each month. Duh, right? And then the other term that you have to work with is that one. More basic than that is just the annual percentage rate, right? It's just like APY that we did back in chapter 12, except this is for loans instead of for investments. So you will often be given the APR when you are calculating, or in fact, it is by law required that any institution that lends you money will give you the APR of your loan when they give it to you, okay? They can put it in really, really small print and hide it pretty sneakily, but they still have to give it to you somewhere, all right? So these pieces of information are the sorts of things that I can ask you about any kind of a loan that we dream up, okay? So let's do one, okay? Best way to sort of figure these things out is to just do it and then play with it while you're going, all right? So, what should we buy first?
A card.
Okay. We are buying a used Honda Civic.
I had a feeling you were going to say a Prius at first. I was thinking, no.
Those aren't really worth those. There's not a big used market for those quite yet. Nobody really knows how well the batteries are going to last, or whether they corrode, or whether they have to rebuild the engine if they replace the battery, or whether the batteries can explode when they get close to being expired. There's all sorts of things you think aren't going to happen, but you're still a little nervous. All right. So, the price is, let's keep it relatively simple. Let's suppose it's,
22.
let's say it's $6,000.
Oh, you said used, okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. Used, right? All right. We get a deal that that we pay $1,000 down, and finance the rest for, let's see, so, we go $5,000, so let's say $120 per month for 4 years. Can you guys handle $120 per month car payment?
But you can always pay more.
Well, but this one's being done as a gentleman contract. It's not actually going through a bank. So the guy you're buying this from is just saying, look, hey, you got $6,000 up front, and you're like, well, not really. I've only got like 3 or 4. And he's like, look, here's what we'll do. You just give me $1,000 of that, and then if you send me $120 a month after that, I'll say I sold you the car for $6,000, and we're all good, right? So in theory, there's no banking going on here. This is just a gentleman's agreement, if you will. So this is actually the way they used to buy and sell cars back before banks were a big deal. So this is actually a story that my grandfather used to tell me about how he would get tractors for his farm. They wouldn't go to a bank to buy the tractor. They'd go to the neighbor and say, hey, I see that you've got a new tractor. Can we buy your old one? And they're like, yeah, sure. And they're like, how do you want me to pay for it? And since they're farmers, they know they don't have any cash on hand. And so they say, look, give me a certain amount up front and give me a certain amount per month and we'll be good in 2 or 3 years. And that's how they did it. It was just a gentleman's agreement. And there was a small amount of interest being involved and everybody was relatively happy, right? So anyways, so my question to you then is, all of those things that we went through, tell me what they are, right? So, normally, folks, the down payment is a percentage of the price, but in a gentleman's agreement, it's just a dollar amount. So, how much did we put down? Okay. If I give you one of these things for free, take the 3 points and run, all right? So how much did we borrow? What was the amount financed? $5,000, right? Because the price was 6 minus 1,000, $5,000. Technically, what comes after amount financed, just so that you guys know, is normally monthly a payment amount. And for this one, what's our monthly payment? I gave it to you, so it's another one of those freebies ones, right? So, now, how much interest are we going to pay?
$760.
How do you figure that out?
I took 120 times 12, and then took that by 4.
Okay, so let's say $120 times 48, because the 48 months in 4 years.
Yeah,
You can do it 4 times 12. I'll do it in one number if you don't mind.
that's
Okay.
fine.
And then what did you do with that number?
I know.
Yeah, and then what'd you do with it to get your answer?
Oh, I just took that minus 5.
Exactly.
Great.
So the amount you're going to pay minus the amount that you borrowed. What did you say that number was again?
760.
$760.
I think. I hope.
You're right. I got it.
Okay. All right. So then, what is the deferred payment price for this Honda Civic? How much are you really paying for the Civic?
6,760.
And how did you get that?
Took your $6,000 plus your 760.
6,000 plus 760 is 6,760. That's the shortcut way. Take the price, add the interest. That's usually the shortest way to do it. What's the way to check this?
Down payment plus monthly payments.
Down payment plus monthly payments. How much did I put down? $1,000. What is my total monthly payments? 120 times 848. That's the 5,760 plus 1,000. Never a bad idea, folks, to check your deferred payment price to make sure all your numbers are valid. If you do those two and they come out to be the same number, good chance you did the problem right, okay? All right. Not too bad, right?
That's all we have to
No.
do. I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, no, this is too easy now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
too much work.
you knew there had to be a crappy part to this problem, and here's the crappy part. What's the very last thing that I haven't told you yet?
It's the interest rate.
Yeah, what was the APR? Okay, so here's the annoying part. This part is the part you need to write down, folks, because this is just weird. All right?
Can't we look at our little handout?
We are going to use our little handout,
Oh, really?
but the little handout is going to be, this is just an odd, it's just odd, folks, okay? So bear with me to some degree.
I don't know, I'm just asking.
So the first kick in the pants is that the APR tables you need to use to calculate APR, they start on page 38 in your tables. And when you get to page 38, you'll understand why they're mildly annoying.
How am I gonna see this?
So immediately I will apologize for the font size. Folks, it doesn't matter where you go to get these tables, this is the font size they use pretty much everywhere.
You got
And-
shit.
And the problem is that if you expand the font size,
It
then
gets
it,
blurry.
well, then it doesn't fit on the page anymore, and so then it wraps around to a new page, and you can't tell which row goes with which row. It's just a real, yeah, it's just bad.
I hope you're gonna be really lenient on the table numbers.
All right, so now the way this works, folks. Technically, note the top of this table says annual percentage rate, right?
Mhm.
The only thing you use this table for is calculating APR. Okay, the only thing.
Page 30.
If you have the APR already, and are looking to calculate what the monthly payment is, that is a different table. Okay? The only reason you use the squinty table is if you need to calculate APR. Okay? So, and invariably someone doesn't listen to that and does it anyways, but whatever. Alright, and if you look up there at the top, it says, underneath all the percentages, it says, finance charge per $100 of amount financed. Okay? What that sentence gives you is how you calculate the table value that you are looking for. Okay? This is going to be weird. Alright? So just bear with me. So compute amount financed divided by the finance charge and then times 100. Okay? This is literally how you get your number to be one of these numbers on the table. Alright? So the way this table works is a little bit backwards from the way we were using it before. Instead of using the table to calculate a value, we're going to calculate a value and then try and find it on the table, and that will give us the percent. Okay? So, for this problem, what was our amount financed? Oh, did I? Right. Backwards, hang out, strike that, reverse it.
Oh,
Oh, jeez. Write it in pen.
It's the finance charge on top and the amount financed below. Sorry, guys. I got carried away.
so they're just flip flop.
Yeah, just flip them.
You could just ruin arrow right.
Yeah, no.
That's when you run your test, as I say, whoops.
I'm old.
That was the
That's
wrong
weird.
spot. And of course, it's because it says finance charge per amount financed. That means that you should be dividing by amount financed. I should be able to read the English and translate it to math. All right. So our finance charge for this problem was what, $760, right?
Yeah.
And how much did we borrow?
6. Oh, 5,000.
5,000, right? And then multiply that number by 100. Now this one worked out nice because I made sure that we borrowed $5,000, which is a nice even number. But that's not a guarantee. Note that if you get this number, you will always round it to the hundredths, and that's because if you look on the table, all of the numbers inside the table go to 2 decimal places. You're just going to be consistent, okay? So, sorry, what was the number again? 15.2. All right, so now the key is to try and look for this number in your row of number of monthly payments. Find the closest value on row of number of monthly payments. So, this was, how many years did we borrow this money? 4. So we're going to go to row 48. And what you're going to do is go to the right until you find a number that's close to 15.2. And note, if you don't run into one, flip the page and the numbers will get bigger.
It's like 7 and 7.25. If I'm reading it correctly.
Alright, so
Yeah, you're right.
So basically what I try to tell students to do is to write the 2 numbers that are just below it and just above it. Okay, so what's the number that's just below 15.2?
14.94.
14.94. Which is the number that's just bigger than it?
15.4.
15.50, right?
Yeah.
And now your job is to tell me which of those 2 is closer to 15.2.
94.
How far is this one away?
Close.
How do you figure out the
Closer.
How do you figure out the distance between 2 numbers?
Just subtract.
Subtract them. What's 15.2 minus?
It's just closer.
Ooh, yeah.
2.6. And what's 15.5 minus 15.2?
0.3.
0.3. Which number is smaller?
You didn't believe me.
I believed you. I just wanted to make sure that you could do it again later
See it.
on.
I didn't know exactly. I could see it.
I agree. But this way you can see, right? You know exactly which one's right. And so therefore, this number, if you go up the table in that column, that will tell you whatever the APR is. So from 14.94, go up until you hit the percentage. What was the percentage interest rate?
7.
7 straight up?
Yeah.
So this is a 7% interest rate, right? And that's how that table works.
Okay, that's not bad.
It is weird though, right? I
A
mean,
little.
it's a little weird, but it's not the way all of our tables worked in the last chapters, right? The last chapters was always find the number, multiply, done. Woohoo! Yeah, it's,
That might be easier than last chapter.
well, we're a little bit more attuned to borrowing money than we are to investing it, so usually this comes hopefully a little bit easier. Alright, but that's how you do APR. Alright? And that's the type of question that I will ask over chapter 14, right? And I can give you the question usually in one of 2 different forms. Either I can give you the monthly payments and you have to figure out what the APR is, or I can give you the APR and then your job is to figure out what the monthly payments are because of the APR. Okay? So that's the next example that we will do, is how to use these tables to calculate the monthly payment instead of the APR. Because those are the 2 things that you can flip-flop on when it comes to a loan. So, folks, we've now bought a car. What do we need now?
Insurance.
Well, we do need insurance, but hopefully we're not borrowing money to insure the car. That would be bad. I mean, unless you really have a bad record. So what are you going to buy after you buy a car? You're going to buy a boat. Okay. So, oops, I'm right. That might be important. All
I
right.
still
So,
thought we were on the whole car situation.
well, we've already got the car now. Now we got to buy the boat.
Well, I thought there was going to be problems with the car. You know, like a transmission issue.
No. That's why we had the engine. That's why we had the mechanic look at it before we bought it, right?
Okay.
He's like,
Putting a point, pulling a boat with a Civic. Good one.
I didn't say it was a big boat. All right, so folks,
I take it as an inflatable one.
it's not a bad idea. How much?
Still struggling at that point.
Canoe.
I'm not gonna.
That's exactly right. It's a canoe, folks. It's just a really nice canoe. All right. So we're putting it on the top.
inflatable ones.
So how much are we going to spend on this boat?
15 grand.
All right, $15,000.
More than the car.
Yeah.
It's a really nice canoe, man.
Yeah.
It's got like a refrigerator. It's got the built-in
It can haul the
tapper.
car.
Yeah.
We got it. We got the picture now.
All right, so
It's just a winter beater.
Yeah.
we have to put down what 20%,
Sure.
and finance the rest. At let's suppose how good's our credit?
In the 700s.
So it's not terrible. All right, so what we get like an 8% rate?
Sure.
At 8% for how long you guys want to finance this?
Like 2 years.
It's 5 years? Okay.
That's a lot of money to do.
Yeah, that's a lot. Those would be some serious payments if we do it in 2 years.
Maybe they want to buy another car to haul that boat with.
I could believe it. All right. So here's your loan, folks, and now we answer the same questions essentially. Okay. Except now you know what the APR is. You have to calculate the monthly. But everything else is still the same, right? So technically, folks, what's the down payment?
$1,000.
And how did you figure that out?
I don't know. I magically just took 15,000 times 20%.
15,000 times 0.2,
Yes.
30,000. So we put $3,000 down on the boat, or in the car. Boats are more important in Wisconsin than cars, aren't they?
Really. Depends on the part of the state.
Exactly. Depends on where
Could be a
you're from.
snowmobile for 15,000.
All right, folks. So how much do we borrow then?
12,000.
How else could I calculate that 12,000 if I didn't want to do it through subtraction? 0.8. Why 0.8?
Oh, yeah.
80%.
Yeah. If you put 20% down, how much of it is left?
80%.
80%. Don't forget your complement concepts, chapter 6, 7, and 8. Those are still going to be required for the final exam. Thank you.
Subtracting's easier.
So what if I made that number $14,867.32?
Put it in the calculator and it'll come in.
You'll screw it up, though. All right. So what do I need to know next? Oh, now I need to know monthly payment. All right, so how do we calculate the monthly payment when we know the APR? Folks, you go back to the table. Note, do not use the APR table. The table we will use is on page 45. Which you will note is the almost last page of the tables, which means that we're almost done using these. Hint, hint, hint. And we are going to use the top half of this table, or this page. It talks about the loan amortization table. And note that all of the terms are in months instead of years. Short-term loans are in months. Long-term loans are in years. That's chapter 14. Long-term is chapter 15. That'll be the bottom half of the table next chapter. Okay? So, the cool thing about it is you basically just use the percentage and the years, find your number, and you multiply with one twist. Okay? You're going to take the amount that you financed, $12,000, and it's per $1,000. So please note you will always divide your amount financed by $1,000. Okay? Divide it by $1,000. And then you just multiply by the table value. So what is 8% for 5 years?
243.36.
Give me the table value first.
Oh, sorry. 20.28.
Does everybody see where I got 20.28 from in the tables?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so sorry, what was that number again?
$243.36.
So our monthly payment for the boat, basically twice the car. Which makes sense, right? Because we borrowed twice the money. Makes sense, all right? So that's how you calculate the monthly payment for any loan. You just go to this table, and note that I will only give you percentages that fit on this table. So none of you are going to have really good credit because the table starts at 7.5%, right? No 2.1% financing from this class. Sorry, folks. I'm a shyster. Deal with it, all right?
No, wait a minute. You take the answer, okay, the 12,000 divided by 1,000 times 20.28.
Yeah.
That table with the line on it makes, it's kind of messing up. the
Oh,
numbers
sorry.
there. Yeah. Thank you. Put the table underneath or say.
20.28
There you go. There you can put table. Oh.
table
wow.
value
It's an age thing. You should
for
know that.
8%, 60 months. And again, 60 months because 5 years. Okay? And note that for this particular class, we will only ever borrow money up to 5 years. Apparently, the whole switch to 6 and 7 year loans wasn't until after this book was printed. So, but it has been happening. If you've noticed lately, that you can get a car loan literally for, you can get it for 7. You can get
7
an
years.
84-month loan.
Yeah.
But what about house loans?
House loans, if you'll notice in the bottom of that table, underneath,
Yeah.
that's where you get into years. That's chapter 15.
Oh, okay.
We got to do chapter 14 first.
Okay,
All right.
got it.
So there's the monthly payment, folks, $243.36. So what am I going to ask for next?
I don't know. What are you going to do?
Finance charge.
How much interest am I paying? So how do we figure out how much interest? Payments, $243.36. How many of them are we making? 60 of them. How much did we borrow?
14,601. I think I did that wrong. I'm not sure.
No, that's probably right. But then just
I don't feel so
subtract
bad now.
the $12,000 that you borrowed.
Oh yeah, I did that wrong. So it's 2,601.6.
2,601.60.
Yep.
So if you make the minimum payment on your car for 5 years, you will wind up giving that car dealership $2,600 for nothing.
That's almost as much as we paid for the car.
True, this is the boat though. It's much more important.
It is.
It's yes, you use it
Literally.
if you're lucky. And so, how much did we really pay for this boat, folks?
What was it, 15 grand?
17,601.60. And again, remember that you can also calculate that by using the down payment plus the monthly payments, either way, right? And again, that's a good check just to make sure that you did it right. All right? Not too bad? Yeah, they're not awful. Now, so one other thing that before we call it a day. And I do this just because the book asks you questions like this, and note that I never will. All right? The book has a couple of questions that ask you, how do you calculate the monthly payment by quote-unquote formula? Okay? The monthly payment by formula is take the amount financed plus the finance charge and divide by the number of months that you are borrowing by. Okay? So basically what they're trying to do is to figure out if you borrowed a certain amount and you have to pay a certain amount of financing, to figure out how much you have to pay each month to cover both of those, you basically just add them and then divide by the number of months that you're going to pay, right? So if I borrow $10,000 and have $2,500 in finance charges, over whatever, let's say 4 years, what is my monthly payment by formula?
Is that like a question that they're gonna ask in the book?
Yeah, this is one of the book questions. It's
Can we
something
do it
like
the
this.
other way?
Hmm?
Can we still do it the other way that we did?
Yeah, I mean, you will actually do it the other way. They will just then ask you, oh, hey, and compare the way you got it from the tables versus doing it using this formula thing. Whatever. Again, it's one of those where the book asks you, and so I want to make sure that you see one so that when you have to do it from the book, you can kind of say, oh, yeah, he told us about this. You can do it, all right?
You should just write your own book.
I really should. So the idea is that then your monthly payment would be $10,000 plus the $2,500, all divided by 48, because you owe this person $12,500 and you've got 48 months to pay it. This is how you divide it up as close to even as possible. All right. So somebody crank that out really fast and tell me what our monthly payment would be.
$260.42. 41.6. So they round 42.
Yes. Round correctly. All right, so just realize that when they ask for monthly payment by formula, they're basically just saying, find the amount financed, find the finance charge, add the two, divide by the months. All right? All right, so this is about 2/3 of the way through chapter 14. Tuesday next week, folks, note we are going to do the rest of chapter 14 and almost all of chapter 15 would be my guess. Chapter 15 is really, really short. There's really only 2 major topics we have to do, and they shouldn't take very much time at all. And so my plan is to assign the homework for chapter 14 and 15 over the Thanksgiving break.
That
And
works.
just have them both be due on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving break, okay?
That works.
Okay, cool. So, if I don't remember next time, remind me to remind you guys, right? Homework, chapter 14 and 15. 14 and 15. 14 and 15.
You know, if you slow it down, the screen wouldn't mess up.
It's the screen doing that. It's not
See,
me.
I got your back on that one, don't I?
For after Thanksgiving break. And what that'll do is give us all of Tuesday next week to basically finish 14 and 15 in one day, okay? And that should get us far enough so that we can kind of take it easy the last couple of weeks of class, okay? So when we come back from Thanksgiving, we got a full week to do chapter 22. The first week of December, we will take our last regular test. And then the second week of December, we'll take our final exam, and then you guys can stay away from me forever.
But we take the final exam on the 13th.
Yeah, Thursday of the last week, yes. So all of our tests after Thanksgiving will always be on Thursday instead of Tuesday.
Oh, good.
It's just way better.
That whole weekend thing just
Yeah,
gets me.
I agree. I don't like it either, but
Well,
it is what we have to deal
When
with.
I
So.
have life, it doesn't matter. No, I can't see that.
All right.